Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today, we're diving into a book that
Oh, yeah,
really shook things up back in the day. D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover. Now, you've probably heard about its steamy reputation.
definitely.
Let's just say it wasn't exactly a bestseller at church book clubs.
Right.
But beneath all the controversy, this story is about so much more than just scandalous romance.
Yeah, you're right. It really gets to the heart of what it means to be alive in a world that can feel, well, a bit soul-crushing. Lawrence was deeply critical of the way industrialization was changing England, separating people from nature, prioritizing profit over human connection. And all those anxieties play out in this story.
Okay, so before we get too deep, let's set the stage. The story centers on Connie, a young woman from the upper class, who's stuck in a pretty lifeless marriage with Clifford, a war veteran paralyzed from the waist down.
And Clifford becomes almost a symbol of that disconnect Lawrence was talking about. He's brilliant, obsessed with ideas and revitalizing his coal mine, almost like he's trying to impose his will on nature itself. But he's emotionally distant, unable to truly connect with Connie, even though she tries to make their marriage work.
So Connie's feeling pretty lost and alone, surrounded by this intellectual elite who are all talk and no, well, you know. Then enters the gamekeeper, Mellors. He's working class, a man of the woods, and about as far from Connie's usual crowd as you can get.
And their relationship, which definitely starts off rocky, becomes this incredible exploration of class desire. And the search for genuine connection in a world that's obsessed with appearances, it challenges all those rigid social norms of the time, pushing boundaries and forcing readers to confront their own assumptions about love and relationships.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really juicy. Lawrence doesn't shy away from describing their affair in detail, which obviously caused a huge uproar back then, but it's about so much more than just the physical.
Absolutely. It's about awakening something deeper within Connie. She's been living in this sterile, intellectual world, and Mellors, with his raw honesty and connection to nature, helps her reconnect with her own senses, her own body.
There's this one passage where Connie's reflecting on how she's changing, and she says, "Where would she find it now? It was gone out of men. They had their pathetic 2-second spasms, but no healthy human sensuality that warms the blood and freshens the whole being." It's so powerful, so full of longing for something real. What do you make of that?
That passage is a perfect example of how Lawrence contrasts the life of the mind with the life of the body. Connie is yearning for that vital physical connection that she's missing in her marriage and in her entire social circle. And she finds it with Mellors, in the woods away from all the artificiality of her upper-class life.
And as the relationship deepens, Connie starts to question everything she thought she knew about love. Class and happiness.
Yeah.
It's like she's waking up from a dream and seeing the world with new eyes.
It's a journey of self-discovery for sure. She's shedding the layers of social conditioning and embracing a more authentic way of being. It's like she's finally coming alive, both physically and emotionally.
But of course, this wouldn't be a good story without some conflict, right?
Mm.
So what happens when the world finds out about their affair?
Well, let's just say it doesn't go over well. There's gossip, social fallout. And Clifford's reaction is, well, complicated. But Connie becomes incredibly strong and determined to be with Mellors, even though it means facing some serious consequences. It's really inspiring to see her stand up for what she believes in, even if it means going against her entire world.
Totally. And I love how Lawrence explores the different perspectives on love and marriage. Through the other characters, you have Clifford, who sees sex as almost a duty, something to be managed and controlled. But there's Mellors, who's been hurt in the past, but finds this incredible connection with Connie. It makes you think about how differently we all experience love, right?
Absolutely. And it highlights how social expectations can warp our understanding of love and relationships. Lawrence is pushing us to examine our own beliefs, to think about what truly matters in a romantic partnership. Is it social standing, physical attraction, shared intellectual interests, or something deeper?
And that's what makes this book so thought-provoking. It doesn't give you easy answers. It just keeps asking those tough questions, making you confront uncomfortable truths about yourself and the world you live in. But honestly, isn't that what good literature is supposed to do?
It certainly is. And in Lady Chatterley's Lover, those uncomfortable truths lead to some pretty drastic consequences for Connie and Mellors, as we'll see when we continue our deep dive in Part 2.
Welcome back to Books and Bytes. We're digging deeper into Lady Chatterley's Lover. And I have to say, the more we unpack this story, the more I'm struck by how relevant it still feels today.
It's amazing, isn't it? Here we are all these years later, and we're still grappling with many of the same issues that Lawrence was exploring. The tension between our heads and our hearts. The search for meaning in a world that often feels superficial. The struggle to find authentic connection.
Exactly. And it's not just the love story that resonates. I mean, think about Clifford's obsession with modernizing his coal mine. He talks about it being this religious question, about the need to prioritize industry over individual needs. It sounds eerily familiar, doesn't it? Like swap out coal mine for tech startup. And you could be reading a headline from today's news.
That's such a great point. It's like that drive for progress for efficiency can become all-consuming, and in the process, we can lose sight of what truly matters. Human connection, creativity, the simple joys of being alive. Lawrence was warning us about this back in the 1920s, and it feels even more urgent now.
Right. And it's not like he's saying technology is inherently bad. It's more about how we use it, how we let it shape our lives and relationships. Remember that scene where Mellors goes on that rant about how motor cars and cinemas and aeroplanes suck the last bit out of them? It's like he's talking about social media and smartphones, a century before they even existed.
It's uncanny, isn't it? And he's not just talking about the working class being drained by modern life. He's also showing how the upper classes are suffering too. They're caught up in this whirlwind of social events and empty rituals, trying to fill the void with material possessions and intellectual posturing.
But underneath it all, they're just as lost and lonely as everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes Connie's journey so compelling. She starts out in that world, surrounded by all this wealth and privilege, but it's all just a facade. It's not until she connects with Mellors, with nature, with her own body, that she starts to feel truly alive.
It's like she's rediscovering a part of herself that she'd buried or forgotten. And it's not always pretty or easy. Remember how she describes feeling like a forest that had been felled? It's painful, messy, but ultimately it's a process of rebirth, of coming into her own power.
And that takes incredible courage, especially in the society she's living in. I mean, think about the lengths she has to go to just to be with Mellors. She's pregnant with his child, but she's still legally tied to Clifford. They have to come up with this whole elaborate plan to stage an affair so Clifford can divorce her without causing a scandal.
It's such a stark reminder of how restrictive and hypocritical social norms can be, especially for women. They're forced to lie and deceive, to play by society's rules, even as they're trying to break free from them. It's heartbreaking. But it also shows how determined Connie is to forge her own path, even if it means risking everything.
And let's not forget about Mellors. He's struggling too, trying to find his place in the world after his experiences in the war and his failed marriage. He's disillusioned with the upper classes, but he also feels a sense of alienation from his own working class roots.
He's a complex character, full of contradictions. He's intelligent and sensitive, but also capable of anger and violence. He's drawn to nature, but also haunted by the violence he's witnessed in the war. It's like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders.
And yet there's this tenderness to him, especially in his relationship with Connie. Remember that scene where he's teaching her the names of the wildflowers? It's so simple, so pure, and it shows how much he cares for her, how much he wants to share his world with her.
That's one of the things I love about Lawrence's writing. He doesn't shy away from the darkness, the complexity of human emotions, but he also finds beauty in the most unexpected places, in the small acts of kindness and connection that can sustain us through difficult times.
And ultimately, isn't that what this book is all about? Finding hope and meaning in a world that can feel broken and chaotic. It's a reminder that love, nature, and human connection can be powerful forces for healing and transformation.
Absolutely. And as we head into the final part of our deep dive, we'll see how Connie and Mellors navigate the challenges ahead and what kind of future they're able to create for themselves in a world that doesn't always make it easy to choose love over convention.
Welcome back to Books and Bytes. As we wrap up our deep dive into Lady Chatterley's Lover, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. What stands out to you about Connie and Mellors' story so far?
You know, what strikes me is their resilience. They face so much opposition, both from society and from their own internal struggles, yet they keep choosing each other, keep fighting for their right to happiness.
It's true. It's so easy to give in, to conform to what everyone expects of them, but they refuse to settle for a life that feels empty and inauthentic.
Yeah, and that's where Lawrence's social commentary really hits home. He's not just exploring individual relationships, he's critiquing the entire system that tries to control and constrain those relationships.
Right, like with Clifford and his obsession. With revitalizing the coal mine, on the surface, it seems like he's just a practical businessman. But the way he talks about it, it's almost like he sees industry as a solution to all of life's problems.
It's like he's trying to impose order on a world that's inherently chaotic and unpredictable. And in doing so, he's denying a fundamental part of the human experience, our connection to nature, our emotions, our vulnerability.
And that's what Connie finds so liberating about her relationship with Mellors. He helps her reconnect with that wild, untamed part of herself that's been stifled by her upbringing.
There's a beautiful passage where Mellor says, the real things are the trees and the flowers and the birds and the animals, and we're just a part of it all. While he understands that we're not separate from nature, we're inextricably connected to it. And that connection is essential for our well-being, for our sense of belonging.
And it's through that connection that Connie finds healing and wholeness. Remember that scene where she's watching the baby chicks hatch, and she says, life, life, pure, sparky, fearless new life. It's like she's witnessing the miracle of creation for the first time.
Yeah.
And it fills her with hope and possibility.
That's such a powerful image of renewal, of finding life in unexpected places. And it's not just about physical birth, it's about emotional and spiritual rebirth as well.
Exactly. But of course, their journey isn't without its obstacles. Connie's pregnancy throws a wrench into their plans, and they're forced to confront the social consequences of their affair.
And this is where we see the limits of their rebellion. As much as they want to escape the constraints of society, they're still bound by its rules. They have to come up with this elaborate scheme to protect Connie's reputation and secure her freedom from Clifford.
It's frustrating, isn't it? They found this incredible love, this authentic connection, but the world seems determined to keep them apart.
Yeah, but it's also a testament to their commitment to each other. They're willing to go to great lengths to be together, even if it means sacrificing their social standing, their comfort, their security.
And ultimately, that's what makes their story so enduring. It's a reminder that true love requires courage, resilience, and a willingness to defy convention.
And even though the ending is open-ended, we're left with a sense of hope that Connie and Mellors will find a way to create a life together on their own terms.
It's a reminder that even in a world that can feel cold and isolating, there's always the possibility of finding connection, meaning, and love. And that's a message that resonates just as strongly today as it did nearly a century ago. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Lady Chatterley's Lover, and we hope you'll keep exploring the power of literature with us on Books and Bytes.